Preliminary results from parliamentary elections in Lebanon appear to show major losses for Hezbollah and its allies as the country grapples with economic turmoil. As votes continue to be counted, early indications suggest a low voter turnout and breakthroughs for smaller independent parties. At least 11 seats are expected to go to reform politicians, which experts say reflects the anger felt by voters towards the ruling elite. The Iran-backed Hezbollah and its allies secured a majority in 2018, but financial collapse and the Beirut port blast has prompted growing anti-establishment sentiment in the country. Well, let's cross to Beirut now and speak to our correspondent, Shona Murray. Shona, the final results have yet to be determined, but we're hearing about an interesting shift in the political landscape. What is the state of play at the moment?
Yeah, I think the official results are coming in, and it does appear, as you mentioned there, Alistair, that there's been modest gains for opposition parties, which, as you said there, comes as no surprise. We've seen a lot of anti-establishment movements in the past couple of years here in Lebanon, because the economic and financial situation really is one of the most dire in this part of the world. On top of that, we saw that atrocious explosion in the port of Beirut, where there hasn't been any full investigations taking place. So the mood of the country is extremely low. And I spoke to lots of voters over the past few days who told me they simply wouldn't be coming out because they didn't think their vote would make a difference. That's why you have a turnout of around 41%. 2018 it was 49%. But what we do see is that Hezbollah will lose its majority, which is an interesting shift. There has been a drop in support for some of the major parties, the Sunni and the Shia major parties, but obviously Hezbollah losing that majority will come as a bit of a surprise because a lot of their voters are normally quite disciplined. Now, I caught up with Mohammed Haj Ali earlier today from Carnegie, and he told me that there was a bit of intimidation and violence in some of the voting centres.
We've seen cases of beatings of the other side. Opposing candidates have been attacked. They've been intimidated. We've seen representatives of these candidates in voting centres also being intimidated, attacked. And also we've seen Hezbollah minders showing up with elderly, going into the voting booths and helping them, vote for the right choice, the choice that they deem is right.
That's Mohammed Haj Ali speaking to me earlier, saying that there was some intimidation, which we saw reports of in certain count centres, but that wasn't widespread, I should say, Alistair, having gone to a lot of the centres myself. But it did happen. Alistair?
Now, we understand the EU has sent a delegation of election observers. What more can you tell us about what they've been doing?
That's right. About 167 EU observers. Most of them have been here since March, really just preparing for the election, speaking to candidates, speaking to the media, making sure that the media can report freely, speaking to candidates about the level playing field, having a look at the constituencies, the polling booths, monitoring the votes as they're being brought to polling centres. And then for the next few days and overnight, they've been monitoring the counting, the tabulation of those votes. They don't interfere in any way. They just watch and then they make an assessment. The preliminary assessment will take place some stage tomorrow. But in the meantime, I did catch up with a few of them, and they believe that their presence alone does help the elections take place in a fair and free way.
I think they play an important role. Of course, we are just one puzzle in this mosaic. Already our presence can deter some violations, some irregularities. I think our presence is important for the transparency of the process.
And one of the EU election observers speaking to me earlier today at one of the count centres, where they'll be monitoring over the next week or so how the election's being counted and then give an assessment in the next coming weeks.